Hello and welcome back to Williams Educational. I am Wendy Williams, founder of Williams Educational Consultants. Today, we are going to continue the conversation on college tours and why they are important for students and families. I am so grateful that Jordan Stevenson, the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at Texas A&M University-Commerce, is here to talk with us about campus visits. But before we get started, Jordan, you and I actually go way back. We both went to the same high school, different times, but we both attended Walton and East Cobb here in Georgia. And I was lucky enough to get to know you and watch you as you went through Georgia State University. And then, of course, my alma mater, KSU, go Owls.
Go Owls.
And so now you're in Texas. And I'm so grateful to reconnect and have this conversation. So before we get started, tell me a little bit about enrollment management and how you got into that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wendy. I'm so excited to join you today. And yes, you're right. We go way back. Go Raiders.
Yes.
Hootie Hoo and go Owls. And some of the, just for your folks that are watching this and going to experience this, it's been neat to work with Wendy over all these years, how much she cares about students and families and cares about finding the right place for each student to grow and thrive and develop into true adults and get out there into society. And, it all goes back to those days at Walton and at Kennesaw State. So, this world, this enrollment management world, kind of similar. I think we joke in the higher ed and secondary side about, one side of the table or the other, or one side of the desk or the other. And I've been doing this now for 18 years, have worked at 4 different universities. Never worked from my alma mater. I went to Samford University for my undergrad in Birmingham, Alabama, after graduated from Walton. And, along the way, worked for UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham. Loved that place. Great school, very good school. And used to do campus tours at UAB. And so not only was I an admissions counselor, but was responsible for our tour guides and coordinating our campus tour, campus visitation side. So learned a lot there. And then that brought me back home to Georgia. Was in Georgia from 2010 until just recently here in 2013. 2013. What year is it? In 20. It's all the future. 2023, and then moved to Texas. So quite the change. I got into it, I'll say enrollment management, working in admissions and working at a university, because I had a wonderful faculty mentor. And I think that's something, that's special about getting to work with somebody like Wendy. You've got your person that you can go to and counsel you and hear you and listen to you as you're going through this process. And for me, I had a great experience with my admissions counselor. I'm 41. I don't know how many 41-year-olds that still work in higher ed or ever worked in higher ed remember their admissions counselor. Mine was named Brooks, and great guy. Met with me multiple times throughout the process, and ultimately led me to go to the institution I chose to go to. As I was nearing the end of my time at Samford, I had a wonderful faculty mentor, and she really set me down. I studied religion for my undergrad, so I've always joked with families, and students, what are you going to do with a religion degree? I don't know. I still don't know, but I've never been unemployed. So there's a real positive that, I may not have necessarily done anything directly with religion. I did a little bit. I've worked as a youth minister. I've done some other things, along the way. But it's that liberal arts degree, that humanities degree. I've never been unemployed. So it's worked out pretty well for me in the long run. But she was like, I was talking with her. I was planning on going to seminary after I graduated with my religion degree. And in my senior year, I felt like that wasn't the right path for me at that time. So I was kind of struggling with what am I going to do? Because this is what I planned on doing the whole time. It's what took me to Samford,
Right.
all of those things. And she was like, have you thought about other ways to serve people, to serve the city? I was very invested in Birmingham at the time and learned a lot about the history of Birmingham, very complicated, deep history to the city of Birmingham. Living in Birmingham at the time, was very invested in wanting to make that a better city and make the state of Alabama a better state. And how could I do that as an individual? And she was like, you may want to look at opportunities to work in higher education. I was like, what? What people do that aren't just, faculty? Like, I'm not planning on getting my doctorate kind of thing. And she's like, oh yeah, there's tons of opportunities. And I had another at the same time. It's funny how things work this way. The same time, I had a friend, a little bit older than me, had done the youth ministry thing and said, nope, this isn't where I feel like I'm called to be. And he became an admissions counselor. And
Interesting.
so he started talking to me about, hey, I think you'd really like this. You get to talk to high school students. I was already working with high school students a lot while I was a college student. You get to travel around the, gorgeous state of Alabama. I was like, wow. I was, so excited. And learning all the ins and outs of the state of Alabama. And so I was sold. And then also he said, oh, and you can get your master's for free. I said, free is for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what led me to pursue becoming an admissions counselor. It was really the service piece from my faculty mentor. And then it quickly became this is something that actually might fit me,
Right.
and I might be okay at. So let's figure that out. And thankfully, UAB hired me. So different school than Samford, over the mountain in downtown Birmingham. Fell in love with the school. Fell in love with what it provided to the city of Birmingham and to the state of Alabama. So much going on at that institution. So much, people obviously interested in the medical side of that institution, but so many other things that were happening too. So I spent 5 years at UAB and, grew and absolutely loved it. But got to the point where I started a family and looking for where's that next opportunity for me. And it was back to Atlanta. So from there, it just kept on growing over time, getting to continue to advance and move up, take on new challenges and find new ways to serve students and families. And that took me to KSU, and a lot of growth at KSU through a lot of transition as that institution continued to grow. I got to be a part of the consolidation with Southern Poly and to take on the Marietta campus and brand that campus and really be a part of the new KSU. And get to the point where they continue to trust me, take on more with undergraduate admissions, but then also take on new student orientation. And so a lot of growth there, which ultimately led me here to Texas. But it was definitely, I talked to everybody I've ever worked with about a year and a half in at UAB is where I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I actually think this is what I'm meant to do.
Love
So
that.
again, and it was,
You do a great job. You left some
well,
big
thank you.
shoes to fill at each institution you were at, and I can
Well,
say
thank you, Wendy.
so.
I appreciate it.
It's great. What were you saying?
I was going to say, you look through your life, and I know you're talking about this when you're counseling your students and your families, and we know it from research and experience too. But every one of these kind of bends in the road or forks in the road, I had a mentor. I had somebody that could counsel me, or somebody that encouraged me, and that led me to, or helped me in making a decision, and putting me down a path. And so Greg Embry was my first boss, associate director. He was at UAB, went on to Montevallo, a bunch of different schools. He's back in the state of Alabama now. He used to work at Georgia State and Georgia Gwinnett, and he was at a bunch of different places. But he was the one that really encouraged me a year and a half in, like, hey, if this is something you want to do, there's a career for you. Put your head down, learn as much as you can, volunteer as much as you can, take on, all these different opportunities and try to grow. And that ultimately was great advice that led me to all the opportunities I've had, since then.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for everything that you do for all of our families. I know
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you've been in so many different fields, and you've seen the campus change from Georgia State to, KSU to Samford, UAB, and now at Texas A&M, you've been a part of those departments. And so I really was excited to have you on so we could talk about the importance of college tours and campus visits.
Right.
As you know, most families in the South, I shall say, I have students all over the nation, but I think South is when April hits, we go on college tours. It's like things. And so I would love for you to share with me your thoughts on a couple of things. One, how should students and families approach each college visit?
Yeah, right. Um, my mindset when it comes to the college visit is to try to help students and families keep an open mind. Now, I'm going to assume they're taking a college visit because there's some level of interest, right, in the institution or in an opportunity within that institution, or the student has been contacted or recruited in a way that it opened their eyes to an institution. And the campus visit is the chance to really feel it out. I'm a big feels person, if you will. I put a lot of, and maybe to my own detriment at times, but I put a lot of stock in experiencing something or some place in the case of the campus visit and connecting. A lot of people think feelings is just the heart. I don't believe that. I think feelings is your ability to connect your head and your heart and make a decision in that moment, right? Yes. I'm a very like spontaneous, ask my wife, very spontaneous in the moment kind of guy. I'm not always planning things out very well, but when I'm in the moment, I feel like that's where I'm really clicking on all cylinders, right? So I want families to approach a campus visit because they've got some sort of interest in an institution and they're able to visit with an open mind as much as possible. Yep. I use my own daughter as an example. We all use our N of one, and so my own daughter, growing up, she's now 25 years old and lives there in North Atlanta. And we went on a string of college visits junior year, and which was for me was great because it's both personal and work related. So I don't even know if I asked off for that time. I actually did, but I was going to try to make a work joke. Yeah. So we go on this string of college visits, and so she grew up in Atlanta. So we launched from Atlanta, and we went through a series of SEC schools. We went to some smaller privates. So everywhere from my alma mater to Ole Miss, University of Tennessee, Davidson, University of Kentucky, Clemson, UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, Wake Forest. Wake Forest was my favorite. Anyways, go Deeks. But big Arnold Palmer fan. And anyways, she ended up picking the University of Kentucky. Okay. And I was surprised. And we went in with an open mind, but she's one of those ones. She was reached out to by the University of Kentucky. They have every major under the sun, so it wasn't really an issue with compatibility from an academic side. Sure. She wanted to study music or hospitality management. It was going to go one of the two ways. But they were even for a large institution, very accommodating. We got to do a visit with one of their music faculty members, sit in on a drum. She was a drummer, percussionist, sit in on one of their drum teaching sessions, and just wonderful visit experience at the University of Kentucky. So anyways, long story short, she actually did this thing where she, did the whole pros and cons list, and that's not me. That's some people. It's great. And she found that Kentucky had more of all the things she liked. She really liked Ole Miss. There's other places she was not super keen on. And she combined them all and ultimately said, okay, University of Kentucky fits the majority of what I'm looking for. And when I think back on the campus visit, that's where I felt most at home. Yeah. I said, okay. To me, that sounds like that's the right place. Right. I thought she would love Wake Forest. She didn't. And
That's
I was
because you
shocked.
liked it. You if
That's
a
because I like,
goes to school, you can check it off.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Done.
I
I was
always
hoping the
tell
same thing for Davidson, but
I always tell parents if you give any indication that this is your favorite place, they will not like it. So
ooh,
make channel it inward. Don't share
Lady Gaga said it right. Poker
yeah.
face. Have a poker face. Yeah,
Okay. No,
poker
well,
face.
that's a great story. Thank you. I too, I mean, I've seen hundreds of campuses, but with
Hmm.
my oldest, I mean, we started visiting schools. We were called helicopter parents on one campus tour because we were pushing him in
Hmm.
the stroller. It was for me, not for him.
Yeah, yeah.
But we went on and we've seen all these schools, but for him specifically, he saw about 13 to 15 college campuses.
Hmm. Hmm.
Same thing. He felt attracted to a few. Um,
Hmm.
because of that feel. And so that's
Right.
important. The pros and cons list is really important if you don't know how to separate the feelings once you're off campus. So,
Hmm.
do you think every student should see all of the schools on their list that they're applying to?
I don't think so, because I just don't think it's rational, right, or logical, or even possible in many cases. All of this is with a caveat of, do you have the resources to do it?
True.
And even so, is it the best use of your resources if you do? I would like to see as many visits as possible within your tight list of, here's my reach schools, here's my backup schools, right? Here's my, however you want to classify them, categorize them. Here's my, out of state dream, my private dream, my in-state dream, my in-state backup, whatever it is. And you need to get to your core list. So maybe that's 3 schools, maybe that's 5 schools, but you absolutely have to get to that core list, because we know from our world things change, and especially in today's time, post COVID, we're in a strange FAFSA year,
Oh, it's awful.
Department of Ed. Yeah, I
They
know.
say that in a
So
recording, right? It is really
right, right.
awful for these families and the
Yeah.
school.
Yes, it has. It has wreaked havoc.
Yes.
But I anticipate you're going to see a lot of last minute decisions by institutions, some changes in scholarshiping or tuition discounting, however you want to view it. But there's going to be some changes in offers. There's going to be more movement off of wait lists.
Right.
So a lot of things are going to change. And if you haven't visited that institution, now you're using the orientation as one, you're going to have to put down a deposit for most institutions, but you're going to use the orientation as your tour. And you can do virtual tours and you can do those kinds of things. Nothing is like setting foot on the campus, rain or shine, I don't care. That's what you're going to have to do when you're living there. You're going to have to experience it in all weather. So just get to campus any way you can. Preview days or open houses, regular campus tours during a Monday through Friday, whatever you've got to do to get to a campus to see it, if it's in the top of your list. But no, I don't believe they need to attend every school they're applying to.
And I think too, some of the best campus visits are the ones that they did not enjoy or that were not fruitful, and they can take away information on what they don't want, which leads them to what they are wanting for their
Absolutely.
you know next journey academically.
Yep.
So I agree. I don't think everybody needs to see their list. I think now their lists are growing so much because of the Common App, and it's gotten a little
Hmm.
out of control. I think with that, I think
Hmm.
families really should be focusing on their target schools and making sure that that is a very healthy list for them, to give them options. So I would agree with you 100%. Do
Hmm.
you feel like there is a certain level of importance when you're visiting how to determine that college choice?
Mm. It's a good question. It will depend on the student and the family, right? What are my top things I need from a university, or what I'm looking for to hear from a university, uh, in how I approach the visit and how I approach picking an institution,
Hmm.
right? Um, I do think it depends on the family situation. If you're looking for whether this is a money decision that's going to ultimately determine where you go. And I say this too, again, using personal experiences. So my daughter, she fantastic at testing, very good in the classroom, did great academically, not like her dad, much more like her mom. Haha, jokes. Um, no, definitely better at standardized testing than I was. And so she was offered the honors college track at the University of Kentucky. She would, I will tell you, she probably would have gone to Ole Miss if she had made it in their honors college. She
Mm.
did not. So we went, back for another visit for interviews for the honors college, did all of that rigmarole, and she did not get in. And of course, that was honestly, it was a good experience for her. That little bit of rejection helps strengthen your perseverance.
Whole nother
And
conversation.
that's right. That's another day. But it helped also direct her mind. It's almost like a lot of what happens in college, I relate to dating.
Yeah.
So it's almost like this was that boy that she had an interest in. He did not show interest back. She thought she had a chance, and then it was totally rejected. Now focused on the right boy, right? This one wasn't really the right boy. Thought it might be, really might have wanted it. This is totally an 80s movie. And turns out, no, this was not the right guy. So and she thoroughly enjoyed her UK experience. Loved Lexington. I think that's another thing I probably should have said during the last question was, if you go into a campus visit and particularly the town or the city or whatever the environment is with an open mind, you'll figure out, is this somewhere that I feel like I can actually engage as a student and even as a family? What are the opportunities there to engage in? But engage as a student because the things that are happening outside of the classroom are almost as equally important as to what's happening in the classroom. So is this a place where I feel like I'm going to engage with the city or the town, to learn from, to grow from, have opportunities, both that are enhancing my academic experience, but also my personal development, right? So we saw that in Lexington, and we were surprised by it. Because my family, nobody's from Kentucky. This was a new experience, and just showing up in Lexington and experiencing the town and seeing how it's connected to UK and vice versa. It helps sell the institution big time. So I don't know that I fully answered your last question though.
No,
So
yeah, no, you did. You did a good job. I think that when determining a college choice, I think it is important to actually visit. I think you and I would both agree that if I chose a school that I did not ever step foot on, it could lead to disaster.
oh,
It's
absolutely.
it's a gamble. And so I do think that we're on the same page with the level of importance that campus visits do have. So no, this is great. I appreciate all this advice. Is there anything with you being you've done a couple of different roles in admissions with
Hmm.
campus visits? I mean, having those tour guides, and I always say don't judge a school by the tour guide. They're doing the best that they can. They could have had a
Right.
hard exam. I mean, there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into these campus visits for the college side. So, do you have any quick advice that you might be able to give families when they are on these tours on what
Hmm.
to maybe expect or look for when they are visiting in April?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I would say, and I agree with you on don't judge the school by the tour guides, but you definitely, and I say that, but the expectation is that the tour guide, no matter what's going on in their life, this has been at every institution I've been at, is going to give you their absolute best that day, right? So I hope that no matter which school you're touring, that they truly are giving you their best, because at most institutions, these folks are the best of the best at that school. and they're the ones that are hyper involved, and they're leaders in their fraternities, sororities, and student government and different student orgs. They're the go-getters in the classroom. They're doing undergraduate research, all those things. And so my advice is to, if your student and you as well will take the time to ask the tour guide questions, to ask your student representative questions. I will say that's one thing I really liked. It is a gamble, but Duke assigned you a tour guide in a small group of students.
Yes.
At least was the last experience I had at Duke, and that was probably 2017, I think. And I really liked that. It's a gamble. You can get a mismatch in there, but to take a larger tour, right? There had to be, even Duke, not a giant institution, but not a tiny institution, very similar to the size school I'm at, although I wouldn't compare us otherwise. But we probably had 80 people on the tour, and then broken up into probably 8 different groups, right? So you had a much smaller feel. I think maybe 3 students to 1 tour guide. So ask those questions, right? What brought you to this institution? What made you pick XYZ school?
Yes. Where else did you apply?
Right. Where else did you apply? Yeah, right. There's nothing wrong with asking these questions, and it helps you understand their perspective and their decision making. Is yours going to be similar? And then ask them, what have you learned while you're here about engagement, right? Not just like, what have you learned in the classroom? Those are very valid things. What have you learned? How has the college helped you develop as a person, right? And what's the next thing for you? What are you trying to do? I found when you talk to our tour guides, like I said, they are the ones that are the go-getters, but they are trying to get internships, job shadowing opportunities, co-op opportunities. They're trying to work with state senators and legislators, and these are you want to ask them about that process, because it's a lengthy process. It doesn't just happen in a week or two on a college. This takes months to semesters to secure some of these opportunities. It takes months and semesters to do undergraduate research, to have a faculty mentor that you're working with, to prepare to go to graduate school or professional school. So ask some of those questions, like, what have you learned about engagement and getting involved, and not just in the student activities and student organizations, but like these co-curricular opportunities, these things that are really going to grow you as a young professional, take you to that next step. Like, when did you start doing these things, and who helped you? That's a great question. Yeah, I want them to talk about, just like I've talked a lot about my own personal having mentors that have been parts of my life and helped me make decisions. Like, who here is helping you as the tour guide, as the student, make decisions, and help them connect with those people.
Yeah, no, those are great, Jordan. Thank you so much. I want to ask you, before we go, a question I ask all my great friends that come on here. So tell me, what brings you joy in your everyday life?
Wow. It's a big question. That's a huge question. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I would be remiss if I did not give my utmost just appreciation and praise to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That, number one, Jesus is my guiding light in life, and who I follow, and through Jesus, I have my family, who brings me a lot of joy, and then brings me joy in my work. Because as I talk about, what took me to Stanford and seeking a religion degree, and it would have been Jesus, but it was also very hard for me to decide, as a senior in college, what am I going to do with my life when I'm not feeling like seminary and this path that I was on? And this happens to a lot of college students.
Yes.
What do you do when life doesn't quite go the way you thought it was going to go? And I'm not talking about a bad test. I'm talking about, I had planned on doing this thing for a long time, and all of a sudden I'm not.
Yep.
And I didn't have a backup, I wasn't studying business, and I could go do something else. So I'm very thankful, and I bring that up, I guess, to say I'm very thankful that I found purpose
Mm,
in that I can connect to both being a follower of Christ to also just wanting to serve society in working in higher education. So what brings me joy in what I do outside of family and following Jesus is I do get to do something that I feel like actually gives back to society. And I want to be a part of the continual progression here in the United States and in the world, but brings education to the masses and accessibility of education to where students can have a choice in life and choose to make a better life for themselves and their posterity, if you will. So yeah, that brings me joy in life. Now, if we're
good.
talking hobbies,
Yeah.
then there's all sorts of things. I played a lot of golf growing up, and then I got a little bit away from it, and now I'm back. I'm back, baby, and I'm loving some golf.
Oh, it's
So
wonderful. No,
yeah,
those
super
answers are great. I really
good.
appreciate you sharing your faith and your walk in this journey of higher education and how you have made it a commitment to serve families and students and be a part of the conversations that are meaningful and are changing lives. So the Lions are so lucky to have you. We miss you here in Georgia. But I greatly appreciate your time and your energy, and please continue doing what you do so well. And thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. And yes, I do miss all my wonderful Georgia friends. But thankfully, we're not that far away with technology like this. So we will stay in touch and just best of luck to you and all of your wonderful students and families around the nation.
Thank you, Jordan. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.